Hello and welcome back to this AWS course. We're currently in section 4, and in this lesson we're going to look at a feature of Vite which allows us to store configuration information in .env files. Vite will read the files and make the data available to our code. Now it's documented here. If you go to this Vite dev guide env and mode page, you can see that it's explained here. It gives an example of a .env file, and it shows two configuration parameters in the file. One begins with Vite underscore and the other doesn't, and essentially it's going to ignore this and it's going to make this available in the source code. So we can see in the source code we have import.META.ENV some key, and that is referring to this value here. So this will evaluate to 123. But if we do the same import.META.ENV db password, well, it won't have read that because it didn't begin with Vite underscore. So essentially, all we have to do is create an env file and have a whole bunch of configuration parameters that begin with Vite underscore, and they will be available as variables in the source code. I just want to make clear that the running program is not reading environment variables at runtime. Instead, Vite is essentially implanting these values into the source code at build time. So the other thing I just wanted to mention, that if you want to follow along with the source code, if you go to richerbraincourses.co.uk and click on this repo button, you will find source code for every lesson. So this is lesson 2, and this folder contains the source code as of the end of this lesson. And if you want to pick up from the last lesson, just get the code from this folder, number 1. So with that, let's go to Visual Studio Code, and this is the code as of the end of the last lesson. And what I'd like to do is, instead of having the URL of the API server hard-coded into the source code, I'd like to read it from a .env configuration file. So I'm just going to copy a .env file in, and notice I paste it into the root of the UI project. So paste it here, and you can see it contains a single line, and the parameter is Vite underscore API base URL, and here's the value we want to import this string. So eventually we're going to have quite a number of these, so I'm going to have a little config.ts file which is going to read them all and set them into variables in the source code. So let me just paste this in. Paste. So here we are. This is the URL of the Vite documentation that we were just looking at. And you can see what I'm doing here. I'm creating an object called config, and it's got properties and values. And the API base URL is going to be set to this value here. Now this little red squiggly is happening because we need some type information for Vite, and that's easily sorted. I'll just copy another file in to the root of the source code like this, and this simple item here will essentially advise the TypeScript to go and get the correct typing for Vite itself. And if we now come back here, we'll see that this env has no longer got a squiggly underneath it. So we now have this object exported, and we can read it into our API server code. So I'll just put a little import up here. So I'm importing the object, and then I can replace this string where I'm using this string interpolation syntax inside these backticks. So that's it. When we compile this using a Vite, either in dev or build mode, it will simply takes this text, and as part of the bundling process, it'll get rid of this and it'll replace it with HTTP localhost 3001. And that will be the value. So let's go ahead and run this. If I say prun API dev, over here is listening on 3001. If I say prun UI dev, and then I go here, we can see services. Okay, so the connection is still working. Okay, so that's how we parameterize the local API server. In the next lesson, we'll automate the production of an env file that contains the address of the remote API server when it's deployed into the AWS cloud. So I will see you there.